think the growth of Rocket Pool has been great. Like it's been really wonderful to see. The Lido thing, as each day goes by, I think more and more people are paying attention to it and getting worried about it.
Welcome back, Rocket Poolers, to another episode of the Weekly Orbit. This is the week ending June 17th, 2023. My name is Pat. I'm here with my co-host Whack, who's been on special assignment the last week. Here on the Weekly Orbit, we send our correspondents to all four corners of the globe looking for Rocket Pool news and research. So what have you come up with?
A whole bunch of stuff to cover today, Pat. Like there's no shortage of news in the Rocket Pool land. So I got a bunch of
even
stuff
during
for us to
the
talk about.
quote slow weeks in news, there's always stuff going on with Rocket Pool. It's growing, and this week the markets were kind of bouncing. A lot of volatility, and we got that to talk about as well.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to share my screen, and we'll jump right into the weekly stats.
Sounds good.
So this is one of your favorite topics, and I'm going to start with the deposit pool, and then we're going to talk about a couple other things on here. We do this each week. This week we're at, let's take a look at the daily deposits from the last 7 days. We've gone down to 3 digits a couple times there, June 12th and 13th, and then bounce back up. And then it looks like we're, between 1,500 and 2,500. So the initial big FOMO into our ETH seems to be kind of plateauing a little bit as expected. Any thoughts?
Yeah, so this week has definitely been like the slowest week since Shanghai and Atlas happened, the forks and upgrade. And the balance between the inflows and outflows into Rocket Pool are still looking good. Like, the deposit pool is empty. We've got 145 people waiting in the queue as validators. But that is clearing quite quickly. It's moving along. Sadly, it's just the pace of moving along has slowed down a little bit, and you can see on this chart as well that it's kind of like that vertical period of growth like was huge, and now it's just starting to flatten a tiny little bit. But I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's normal, like as we go through the cycle. And you have to remember as well that crypto as a whole is getting a lot of negative attention right now, and there's a lot of eyes on it in a negative way. So that means that that interest kind of cools down a little bit. And this also happened last summer, when there was all the collapses of the 3AC, and the summer was just really, really slow last year, and it might be a slight mirroring of that. But the amazing thing to think about though is that there's still growth happening. We're still getting hundreds of mini pools coming through. We're still getting thousands of ETH deposited per day on average, which is amazing. And we're getting more ETH in a day than we did in some months during last summer. So even 2000 is better than some months that we had last summer. So
yeah,
it's not great, but it's still really good, if that makes sense.
And one thing we haven't gone over much is how are we started out with the number of node operators. If I recall, where were we before Atlas? Were we at
around 22, 2300, somewhere around there? Yeah.
So now this week we just went up to we're at 2,900.
That's right. Yeah, 2,900 node operators. Yeah. So as you can see, the April and May has been a huge increase in node operators, and June as well, of course. That's like over 700 already, basically, since that's happened. So we've gone up by a good 25-30% in that time, and that's really, really good. It's very respectable. Yeah,
we're getting over 50 a week. Looking at the last couple months of history, the week after Atlas we had 90, and then 51, and 74, 84, 57, 64. This week 43. So that's good as well. And then what's interesting too, this chart, mini pools per node operator, and the median is too many pools per node operator. Okay, the average is 8.43. But this goes to one of the core principles of Rocket Pool was to let more people stake and become a node operator by reducing the requirement from 32 ETH down to 16 and now down to 8. And you see this, the majority of our node operators are small fish and not the gigantic whales or those fortunate enough who had 32 ETH to start or more than 32 to start. So it's good to see. I really like this chart.
It's lovely. Like that's the whole point of Rocket Pool, right? Like democratizes staking, and it helps people come in with smaller sizes. Like instead of 32, you can come in with 10.4 ETH of collateral, and that is wonderful because it makes it 3 times easier to become a Rocket Pool node operator than it does to be like a solo staker, and hopefully in the future it'll get even better.
Yeah, and one thing that some folks have been looking for over the last several months is a talk of a 4 ETH mini pool. And we're not going to cover it in this episode, but there was some talk, I believe it was this week, where there's an EIP proposal that's going to be included in the next Ethereum protocol upgrade, which will potentially allow for 4 ETH mini pools, but there's some work still to be done there.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of research that still needs to be done to figure out how, like, theft will work and how, like, basically MEV theft. But also you need like a few things to happen at the Ethereum level, and with the EIP that you mentioned, that would help. That would have some really big consequences, actually, not just for forced exits, but also for the way the oDAO works as well. So there's some really exciting things happening for Rocket Pool coming up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So this, as we said, this week was pretty volatile in terms of price. And what's interesting is I was looking at the price this morning of ETH, and ETH is back up where it was a week ago. It was around 1735, I think, and it dropped maybe over $100. Now we're kind of back up over the week. ETH is flat after all that volatility. Rocket Pool is down a little bit compared to ETH. Last week ago, we were at 0.025, 0.0251, and we're now at 0.024. That's about a 5% decline against ETH. So the bigger picture with this week's volatility was small coins really took a hit compared to BTC and ETH, and Rocket Pool held up pretty well compared to most, but it still took a little bit of a 5% hit.
Yeah, so Rocket Pool actually was holding on really well. If you go to the 14-day chart, I think that might give you a slightly better story. Just a little bit up there where it says 40. Yeah, there you go. So it shows that there has been a kind of downtrend, right, for the last couple of weeks, but as you can see, like the ratio was holding up really well, and then that just kind of collapsed on the 12th. That was basically due to one whale selling off a big amount, and we've slowly like started to trend back upward since then. But we're still, the place that we were kind of hanging out at was that 0.026 range for quite a while.
Wow.
And I guess we'll see if we can slowly claw our way back up to that. But that on the 12th, that was the bad thing that happened. But just
and to that point. So what happens is when there's not a lot of RPL on the market, and when they have a big seller and they sell, you're going to get a big dip like that.
That's right.
This chart, we see this occasionally in the Discord. This kind of visualizes that. You got a lot of the red on the right represents those who are willing to sell, and these are
RPL.
RPL. Yeah, this is the RPL chart. This is the ETH ratio at the bottom. So anything above 0.02, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 0.024, there's a whole bunch of folks ready to sell RPL. But then when you go below 0.024, there's almost nothing. So if someone comes and sells 10,000 RPL, or all of a sudden you're going to burn through this green part pretty fast. Whereas if you're trying to buy, there's a lot of, we call this a wall. Yes. And but that kind of explains when you get a sudden dip. This is kind of why, because you've got a lot more sellers at the higher prices and a lot less at the lower price, or buyers, I should say.
Buyers, yeah. So right now, this chart shows that there's very few buyers on the buy side. So the buy side liquidity is very thin. That's the language that is used. So that means, like you said, if someone comes and sells 10,000 RPL, we could see big dips happen really quickly. But then conversely, like you can also see those increases happen quite quickly as well, which is why the ratio is recovering the way it is, because up until 0.025, there's not that much on the buy side either. So like a decent sized buy could get you back up to those percentages. It's once you're in those like big thick areas that it takes a lot more RPL to move up and down. And that is actually what we want, right? We want to be in those areas of like deep liquidity so people can buy and sell like good sized amounts of RPL without impacting the price too much. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
But it's kind of scary. Like if we, God forbid, if we were to get a couple of big sells today, like we could really like, see big dips on the ratio. But then I think there's a lot of people in the community who are waiting to buy that. As soon as we get down to those levels, people will be buying it up because they know that this is like a good opportunity now to buy here.
Right. Yeah. And if you are a potential big seller, you want to look at this chart because you could really lose a lot in the spread, right? The slippage would be huge. So you might be, if you're smart, you think, well, I want to sell. I might have to do it in smaller increments and be careful because otherwise I'm going to lose my hat on this.
Well, the best way to sell is, if you think the price is going down, is to set up a wall on Uniswap where you set up a one-sided wall where you just put in RPL and you set a price at which you want to sell it. Can you see those like vertical spikes?
Yeah.
That's pretty much what those are, is people like just setting buys and sells of one-sided asset and like really like that. Yeah, that is I think the healthiest way to sell on the market. So you can sell into that dip, like people can buy from you in that dip. And then it's also with the buy side as well, like you can do that as well. But that, and you can move that up as the price moves up as well. So you can sell into that, but or you can buy into that, sorry. But that's sadly like the problem with being a slightly illiquid protocol is that like you have to take that roughness and volatility that you don't get with things like Bitcoin and ETH in the same way.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. So how are we doing 2 months after Atlas? Our friend Jasper had a nice tweet thread this week, and he broke down the since Shanghai, what does the liquid staking token market look like? So the day before Shanghai upgrade on April 12th, Lido ETH or STETH had about 74% of the market of LST. Coinbase had 15.5%. rETH, Rocket Pool had 5.8%, and Frax had 1.4%. And 2 months later, the biggest mover was Coinbase. They lost about 25%. They fell from 15.5% down to 11.5%. And rETH and Frax did the best in terms of relative growth. rETH, we increased from 5.5% to 7.2%. There it is. And Frax was up to 2.1%. So in absolute terms, rETH has gained 1.4%. Lido has gained 2.2%. Relative terms, rETH is up 25% in market share growth. So good. There's a couple of takes from this. Good to see rETH. The other take is, Lido, it's sticky. They still got 3/4 of the market, and they, this is a bigger discussion, but my interpretation of the folks at Lido is, they would take 100% if they could, and they're making they have no shame about that. They're making it clear this is a free market. We want to dominate the whole thing. And then you got the other side of folks who are saying, well, that's good, but what does this mean for Ethereum? Is this a risk? Does it pose a risk of DeFi to the protocol itself? Man, if there's a bug in Lido, that could have some major ripple effects. So that's what I took. What do you think, Wack?
Yeah, I think the growth of Rocket Pool has been great. Like, it's been really wonderful to see. The Lido thing, as each day goes by, I think more and more people are paying attention to it and getting worried about it and trying to like sound the alarm. Sadly, their market share hasn't budged the way that like myself and others had expected that it would. I really thought that it would come down like a sizable amount, and we just haven't seen that, and that's kind of disappointing. But it's just like, I guess we wanted to see that instant hit, right? But like people have been saying for a while that this isn't like going to be an instant thing. It's going to take a year. It's going to take years to play out, and we need much better products in the market for them to take away share from Lido. And it looks like those people are hopefully more right than people like me who've been right, who just wanted that hit in the beginning. So I guess we just got to be patient. We just got to keep shipping on the Rocket Pool side to make it the best possible staking product we can, and just keep that going, and as long as we're working hard and we're putting out a really good product that works for everyone, then we'll see that growth for Rocket Pool continue, and that's what we're here for.
Yeah, and just keep talking about the great attributes that Rocket Pool has over stETH. It's more decentralized. We've got 2,900 node operators. They have 29.
Yep.
We have a more diversified. You got your execution clients, and that I think 85% of node operators on Lido are running geth, right? If there's a bug in geth, and that's so there's a lot to say there. We do have a good product. I think we need to market it more. Just keep pounding the pavement, talking about it, talking about how it's I'm all for free markets too, but I worry about at what point is there a security risk to the entire Ethereum protocol. And more folks are starting to come around to that, talking about it. So hopefully Rocket Pool just keeps plugging away, doing what we're doing, keep shipping, making a good product. One thing about some folks might look at stETH and say, well, the APR is higher than Rocket Pool right now, partly because we had such an explosive amount of growth after Atlas that we've got like 5,000 mini pools that are sitting in there it is, pending. So we got 5,082 mini pools that are sitting in the beacon chain queue, which is right now at like 95,000.
Yeah.
And when those 5,000 mini pools are sitting there, they're not earning any yield. And that makes the APR go down a little bit on our ETH. So if you're on MetaMask and you're looking at stETH or rETH, the stETH will be a little higher right now, and this is why. Perhaps that's going to be like that for a few more months. We'll see when the beacon chain comes down.
But to get through the 95,000 queue, that takes about 45 days. So thankfully, a lot of that is front loaded as well because of people who joined either right after Atlas or in the days after Atlas. So hopefully it'll be like another few weeks before we really start seeing the pending validated numbers go down. Ideally, we just get more and more validators coming through. So we always have pending validators, but it's a fine balance, where it's a self-correcting mechanism. The rewards go down, so then more people become node operators, and then the rewards go up, so more people become rETH depositors, and it's kind of back and forth.
It's very elegant system that they've designed based on supply and demand. It's really, really wonderful.
Yeah.
The next big item this week, there's an ongoing discussion about the oDAO. And so why don't you describe first for our listeners, what is the oDAO besides this funny acronym? What does it do? What are some of its primary duties?
So the oDAO is the Oracle DAO, which is one of the two branches of Rocket Pool's kind of like government, I guess you might want to say. The pDAO is like the people DAO, so I like to say, and then the oDAO is the Oracle. And basically the pDAO is just all the node operators, and the Oracle DAO are a group of, I think, 18 or 20 entities / people who perform duties for Rocket Pool on chain that is vital to the operation of Rocket Pool. So one of the most important things they do is something called scrub check to make sure that people who want to become node operators are doing so in the right way. They're not breaking any rules in that process. There's no way to do that autonomously at the moment, like automatically at the moment, because what happens is there's certain actions that take place on the consensus layer, there's certain actions that take place on the execution layer, and there's no way for the execution layer to talk to the consensus layer. So that is why the Oracle DAO exists, is to bridge that communication gap. Now, there's other things that they do as well, where they kind of vote on upgrades, and they expand or like contract their own group, the Oracle DAO, and they also report balances and prices. So they definitely do have duties that they do. Most of that are automated duties that happen through their version of the smart node stack. So as long as they have their node running, then everything kind of just happens the way it's supposed to, and there's some involvement that they have to do, but not all that much. Now, the main thing about the oDAO is that people bristle at is, one, that it can be a centralizing force. So because there's only 20, 18, 19, somewhere around that number oDAO members, they could technically collude with each other and put through bad information and really mess up Rocket Pool as a protocol, like massively. Almost all the members, I think all the members are doxed. All the members are, belong to reputable companies or groups. We have execution and consensus clients on there. We have teams like Etherscan, also like very prominent community members like Anthony Sassano, the Daily Guide, the Bankless team, Superfizz with representing ETH stakers, the rocket scientists, of course, the Rocket Pool team themselves have 4 oDAO nodes. So when you put all that information in mind, then those people have got a lot to lose by colluding, outside of just Rocket Pool. But it's definitely a concern. So as the PDAO, as a community, we want to minimize the oDAO as much as possible, because we don't want there to be elements of trust in Rocket Pool, right? Like, we want it to be as trustless as possible. Right now, there are definitely elements of trust within Rocket Pool. Like, I don't think they're as significant as some of the detractors might like to point out. But it's real though, right? Like, it's a real thing. So the EIP that we mentioned earlier will actually help towards removing some of the oDAO duties, which would be amazing, which means that we would reduce our dependency on the oDAO, which would be a huge step forward for Rocket Pool.
Right. And so our friend Val, he is really taking up the duties of going through some draft changes to the oDAO, and there's a lot of community discussion. One of the big things is how do we evaluate the financial rewards to the oDAO members? And there's talk of reducing the amount that's going to them from what they currently get. Can you expand on that a little bit? What is it that the oDAO currently receives, and what are some of the couple of the suggestions that the community has put forward?
So the oDAO receives a payment in terms of RPL. So they receive 15% of RPL. Inflation gets divided out amongst all DAO members. Now, what does that mean?
5% annually, right?
Yeah.
So RPL is growing. It's at like 19.5 million RPL in the universe, and it's growing by 5%. They get 15% of that 5%.
That's right. And then 70% of that goes to node operators, and the other 15% goes to the PDAO, where it gets divided out amongst the incentive management committee, the grants management committee, and also like a rainy day fund that gets put aside as well. So that is where the inflation goes. Now, what's happened is at different points in Rocket Pool's existence, the amount of RPL stays the same, but it gets divided out amongst more people as the oDAO expands. But what's happening is that the RPL token has increased in price considerably compared to at different points in its existence. Not at launch. At mainnet launch, it was like nearly at $60, so that was really high. But that price didn't last that long, and it went all the way down to like $7.50 or $8 in that period as well. But they still got the same number of RPL, right? So that didn't change. When the RPL price is high, then a whole lot more people complain about how much they're getting paid compared to when the RPL price is low, and that's fine. But most of us expect that the price will stay up from here except maybe some small periods of downturn potentially. But for the
Mhm.
majority of the future, we expect price growth. So at that point, the question becomes like, do we really want to pay these people like literally like hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for just running a box at home?
Right.
Pretty
One could
much.
argue
Yeah.
on one end, well, if you got $1 billion protocol and you're paying someone $300,000, I mean, that's fractions of a percent to help secure that $1 billion. On the other
Mhm.
hand, you could say, well, that's true, but they're also, they're running a box that kind of runs itself, right? How much
Mhm.
actual work are they doing? They're doing some work to maintain the box and everything. However, so that's where the discussion is, right? What's fair? What's a fair market value of helping to secure the Rocket Pool protocol?
I think everyone agrees that the number should be reduced.
Yep.
But I think the main discussion that's going on is like, how do we do that, right? Like, we can't just be like, let's reduce the number. So the idea that Val and other members of the community have kind of worked towards, and I don't want to like name names because there's so many names of people who've done so much work on this, but the idea is working towards a constitution for the oDAO. It was one of the main priorities on the roadmap from the team post Atlas and Shanghai, is that this is what we want to work on, getting the constitution set so we all work from the same page to make sure that we're doing the right stuff, and
Right.
then after that we can change how it looks. So there's a
Sure.
whole lot of discussions going on about what it will look like, how it will act, what how much they'll get paid, and all of that kind of stuff going forward. So
Yeah, and with this EIP, that may help reduce the amount that we rely on the oDAO, which means
yep.
that you could reduce the amount that they're compensated because they're doing less duties because we don't no longer need them for as much as we used to. I guess the end goal is that our Rocket Pool becomes completely trustless. Its code is out on the internet. It's immutable, and there's no team and no oDAO, and it's just running. That's the long term goal, I guess. Right?
I don't think the code will be immutable. I think because Rocket Pool has to respond to changes that happen on the Ethereum like main network on the Ethereum beacon chain. As long as there's as long as Ethereum is not ossified, then Rocket Pool can't ossify. We still have to work towards the changes that are happening, and we're still in the growth phase for Rocket Pool. So
Right.
I don't
Right.
think we should work towards ossifying yet. And
No.
potentially in the future, we will, and that would be amazing. But I don't think that should be a priority right now. So
No.
there are certain things that we'll need to keep working on, but we can definitely hopefully in the near future take big steps towards removing a lot of the duties from the oDAO, and that would be good for everyone. Like
Yeah. Right.
the
Yeah.
protocol, the
I was thinking
communities.
more like decades down the road, right? Where
Mm,
Ethereum is now essentially it's done, right?
mm,
And there's no more upgrades. So Rocket Pool is it's kind of hand in hand because it's a
mm,
staking protocol,
mm.
and it might be done at that point too.
Yeah,
By then we'll have gray hair and probably be dead. So, but right now, as you said, we're in a growth stage. So this constitution is really it's going to take a lot of discussion. But I think my high level was that there's a lot of people who are putting forth good proposals in good faith as normal with really smart comments. So I'm looking forward to this. This is going to evolve over time, but I know it's one of the main goals now that Atlas is shipped. Some of the focus is going to be on the oDAO and how can we make it better and more efficient.
yep, absolutely, and that's pretty exciting.
Right. Yeah. So I'll link a couple of this. There's a Discord discussion here. I'll link in the YouTube description. So, take a look if you're watching this, read through it. There's a lot to read and comment because this is a good time to comment on these things.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, EigenLayer. A lot of talk about this over the last several months. Went through its testnet, and its first kind of guarded launch on mainnet has happened this week. There's a link we'll have in the YouTube description. So essentially, they are allowing they're allowing folks to stake their STETH, rETH, or CBETH up to 2,900. So you could, if you had, once the 2,900 maxes out, you can't, no more rETH could go in. And that the same goes for stETH and cbETH. And it filled up within hours. It was quick. Here's my question, Whack. What do you get if you were one of the first early birds and you staked your rETH into EigenLayer? What's the point?
Okay, so
that's one thing I'm trying to figure out, and I think it's great that they launched, but I'm kind of mystified about, okay, so what would this do?
So I don't know. Like the honest answer is like I don't know. I don't know how they can use those staking tokens, LSTs, to provide security, because that's not the purpose of the staking tokens, right? Like that's not what their goal is. So I don't know what mechanism that they're presenting to say that, this is providing security. In all honesty, like I think it's just fancy jargon at this point. So their stage 1 launch is 3,200, not 2,900.
Oh, pardon me.
Of those tokens. That's okay. Of those tokens, it filled up really quickly, and I think the main reason why it filled up is because people are airdrop hunting, and they think that they'll get EigenLayer tokens when they come out, and that's why they're doing it. The next step is when they go to stage 2, which is when the node operators get involved. So then they'll be running the EigenLayer software on their nodes. And they'll change their withdrawal address from, the current withdrawal address to the EigenLayer withdrawal address, which itself brings up issues with how it's going to integrate with Rocket Pool, and if it's going to integrate with Rocket Pool, because Rocket Pool, of course, has you set the contract work in such a way that it goes through the Rocket Pool systems, before it comes to you. Right. So at what point does EigenLayer get involved with that? Who gets first dibs on what's coming out, when you exit staking? There's a lot of questions that still need to be answered about EigenLayer. This first step, I think, is just a whole lot of theater. And that's honestly like my frank assessment, is that this is theater. The second stage, that might be more interesting once, node operators actually running the software. Right. But at the moment, it's just, look, we got 10,000 ETH worth of tokens locked up.
Right. And for folks out there, the EigenLayer, the purpose of it was, hey, you can outsource, if you're a new protocol, if you're a layer 2, if you're an Oracle, you can outsource your security using existing ETH that's staked. That's the big idea, because getting security for your protocol it takes a lot of time and it's really expensive. So EigenLayer is saying, hey, well, we've got billions of dollars of ETH already staked. How about if we could leverage that, and instead of creating your own ecosystem of stakers over here, you can just, use the existing stakers. That's kind of the big idea of it, which is really intriguing. How they do that will yet to be seen. We'll see how that works out.
And with the node operators, it's a lot clearer to see how that might work. With this current stage of just depositing LSTs, it could be like they could have deposited anything, right? You could deposit ETH, you could deposit like Bitcoin, like whatever. Dogecoin, exactly, yeah. As long as if they're just a matter of locking up economic value, then I don't see how this stage makes sense. But hopefully, the second stage makes a lot more sense.
Sure. Okay. On to another tweet thread by our friend Jasper. By the way, he just puts out such great content every week. I mean, folks, if you're not following Jasper the Friendly Ghost .eth on Twitter, you should, because we get a lot of content from him. He is a prominent community member. He's out there putting out great tweets every day, it seems. But anyways, he just wanted to remind folks that rETH is now available on Polygon zkEVM with the help of Balancer. So this is great because rETH is available, of course, on Optimism. It's mainnet, Optimism, Arbitrum. Recently, a couple of weeks ago, it was zk Sync Era, and now it's on Polygon zkEVM. So rETH, it's going everywhere, and it's great to see.
Absolutely. And the great thing is as well, it's integrating with all these apps on layer 2s. So Aave just passed their vote for rETH to be available as like a borrowing lending on Arbitrum, and that kind of stuff is going to happen more and more on other layer twos as well. So it just means that people can get access to staking rewards at much and it be very effective at much smaller amounts than on mainnet, because on mainnet you have to factor in the gas costs, and it makes it expensive, right? Like you can't transact with like $100 worth of rETH, whereas on layer twos, because the gas costs are so low, like it doesn't eat into your efficiency as much, and that will open up staking to a whole bunch of people who just can't get access to it now. So it's really wonderful that is happening, and I'm really happy that all of these protocols are really like taking steps towards getting rETH on these networks.
Sure. Yeah, it's no matter what network you go to, rETH will be there. Now, making sure there's enough liquidity, that'll be a
and that's where people like Balance are coming, right? Because they're the ones who are they're getting that liquidity there, they're incentivizing it, and they'll get a lot of people going there because the rewards will be so juicy. Like they'll be really good for at least a while until it kind of plateaus. But there's definitely a lot of nice rewards there.
Sure. And let's bring up the last thing today we're going to talk about is a special 200th episode raffle by our co-host Whack on the Rocket on his great podcast. It's amazing. It's 200 episodes. We were talking about this earlier. Wow, time goes by so quickly. Now you had a raffle at the 100th episode, as I recall. Yep. This one is turning out to be pretty good. Do you want to talk us out through what we should expect this coming Thursday? I think, right?
Thursday. The way it stands at the moment, it's on Thursday that there'll be a raffle. As things stand right now, there's over $2,500 worth of prizes in there in terms of RPL and ETH. There's also a whole bunch of NFTs as well. So, I've been like kind of reaching out to the community at every step about how we should like do this process, like how it should work. And this was really funny because, I said there's a raffle, like there's the big amount of money that can be won. And how should I divide the prizes, right? Should I have fewer big prizes or should I have more smaller prizes? Because it's nice to win, right? And like I think having more people win is definitely nice. So my personal inclination was to go towards more prizes that were smaller. Mm-hmm. The community is like totally split. So as you can see, the vote was 17-17. So that didn't help at all.
No.
I think I still haven't decided on this, and I want to do that this weekend. Is what I'll probably decide on is that we'll have a couple, maybe 2 big prizes of $500 each, and then like 15 to 20 smaller prizes of like $100. Now, that means, there'll be about 20 to 30 prizes in total. And when you realize that there's only 70 people, I think, who've entered the raffle at the moment, that is really
good odds.
Really good odds of winning. So the way that you can enter the raffle is by being a Rocket Fuel contributor. So every month, there's a list of people who contribute to Rocket Fuel. They get a POAP. They get their own raffle that has $1,000 of prizes every month that I give out. Now, for this one, so those people, they get free entry. However, for this one, there's all, to make it inclusive for the community, there's also the chance of you buying a special 200th episode POAP. In that POAP, that will also grant you an entry ticket for the raffle as well. So if you are just playing the odds, like I'm not encouraging you to Sybil attack my raffle, please don't. But like for a person who's playing the odds, a $5 entry ticket gives you pretty much a 50% chance of winning $100, which is like when you run the math on that, that's like ridiculous. Like that, those are incredible returns, absolutely incredible returns, right? So so buy the ticket.
So you buy a ticket through. I'll post the link on the show notes.
It's a POAP. Like you buy the POAP through POAP checkout, and then you enter the raffle through the POAP raffle as well. So it's POAP.fun/ whatever raffle number it is. Like I think 1,877 or something. I don't know. I forgot the number, but it's something like whatever the number is, right? So you buy the POAP, you enter the raffle, and then on Thursday / Friday / Monday the following week, whenever I record the 200th episode, the raffle will take place in the episode live. Also, anyone can watch along with the link, and hopefully, a lot of people will win actual money, and a whole bunch of people win NFTs as well. So the prize pool is really nice right now, and I think that people just haven't realized just how nice the odds are of winning, right? Because you buy the POAP, $5, you got 50% chance of winning $100. Like that is, you're not going to get those odds on any other lotteries out there. So,
No, it's
yeah,
good. And one thing that crypto folks, the degens, they love to gamble, right?
absolutely. But this,
Right. And I think that poll is interesting, whereas you get like, more, I think average folk would be like, oh, I think more smaller price would be better. And then you got the degens are like, no, man, I want it all. Like, what do I need to do? I want to get the top prize, put it
yeah.
all in,
I think that I'll try to cater to both of those sets. So there'll be prizes, a couple of big prizes and a lot of small prizes. So I think my personal opinion is just nice when people win, and the more people that win, the nicer it is. So
Yeah, I'm that's where I come from. And it's like, wow,
yeah,
even if I've won $10, well, that'd be great. That's how I
I
am. But
yeah, I just want to take a quick moment as well to give a shout out to a few people who
sure.
have donated like considerable amounts. I'm not going to mention names because I'll miss people and I don't want to offend anyone because everyone's been so generous. But a whole bunch of people have like donated a big amounts of RPL. Like a few people have donated like 10 RPL, and like NFTs and all sorts. So I'm really grateful for the generosity of our community. Like it's really amazing.
It is. It's great. And that's one of the best things about Rocket Pool is that it's got such a strong social layer. And that, hopefully folks, if you're watching this, try to go to the next conference next year in Denver. You'll get to meet all the folks that you see who are working day in and day out, whatever level of contribution they're doing. And that's one of the best things about Rocket Pool. That's one
Absolutely.
thing that we have that Lido doesn't have, is this social layer. So become part of it. Contribute your time. Join the raffle, and maybe you get lucky.
It's not just that, like there's so many people in the community who have donated their time and then have gotten rewards for it afterwards, like not doing it for the expectation of a reward, but getting a reward anyway.
Right.
And that's happened so many times. And like that's what's happened with me as well, right? Like I donated my time and then I got rewarded for it. And other people have done that as well. And no one's going to the good things happen for the people who do the work. So go do the work.
Absolutely. Well, folks, that concludes this week's episode of the Weekly Orbit. Like and subscribe. We're on your favorite podcast platform as well. Don't forget about that. We will be back next week with everything Rocket Pool. WAC is raffle. Hopefully is this Thursday. Make sure you join that. And perhaps on the next episode, we'll be talking about the winners. But until then, WAC, have a good week,
Thanks,
and
Pat.
we'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.